as dangerous to the players they were being offended on as this Caton Brown one, but the position he got into was very awkward and dangerous, so sin binning was right.
Yeah, no, I do think the sin binning was correct, and I have no issue with it whatsoever. And again, I stand by the thing that I usually say, which is, look, Anthony Gelling has a duty of care. And as much as you can say, well, Tommy Lulawai, you might have expected him to be there, and him actually being there are two different things. So yeah, it was the right call, and it was the right decision, and you know, he'll get a slap on the wrist because he's not a dirty player in Anthony Gelling, and it's more unfortunate than aggressive, I feel like, because you can see what he's trying to do, which is to take the legs and get the guy on the ground. What he's not trying to do is like hoist him over his head. So
I don't think it's quite, for me it's not quite reckless, but it's certainly at the worst end of careless.
Yeah. It's a careless move. Anyway, moving on from that then. 10 points to 16.
So the rest of the referee and stuff then, because I walked out the ground and there was a Wakefield fan, and she must have been a woman in her 50s, or maybe older, was saying to her husband...
Might well have only been in her 20s, mate. They age badly in Wakefield.
Was saying to her husband that was the worst refereeing performance she had ever seen. And I watched the game back, mostly because I do anyway, but partly with an intense scrutiny on all of the ruck decisions, because that's where it boiled down to, apart from one tackle in the air situation that everyone thought at the ground was a tackle in the air, but actually we were all wrong, and the right call was made. I'll get to that one in a second. But these were mostly issues in the incidents in the second half, but there was an incident in the first half where David Fafita was ruled to have knocked on in a tackle where he was taken to ground by Sean O'Loughlin, and I think it was Fafita, and Fafita suggested it was stripped, but when you watch the replay there was no stripping motion. O'Loughlin had wrapped the ball up to stop an offload and went to the ground with the ball wrapped up, but never did he seem to move his position in his hands to refit the ball or whatever, but you can't always see all of that stuff. So from that point on, the referee had set his stall out for me. Any uncertain calls about whether it was interference or control is required from the player carrying the ball will go as a knock-on in this game, is what I think should have then happened after that point. And by and large it did. But there was the Craig Hubie one, I don't know if you remember, in the first in sort of the first, probably back end of the first 10 minutes of the second half,
right,
where Ryan Sutton's knocked his elbow with his knee as he's come back around the tackle. Now Hubie had almost knocked it on, if not had knocked it on, going to ground. It certainly fumbled it a little bit, but maybe managed to regather. So I think Jack Smith's and the officials are thinking he might have knocked this on anyway. And then when Sutton's come around into marker with Hubie's elbow sort of poking out with the ball, he's knocked it and the ball's come out. And the argument there is, does the player have a duty to care, or was the player deliberate? Like, should the player be clearing the ruck and not knocking it out? I think there's an argument both ways.
Yeah.
But giving it as a knock-on rather than a penalty was not the most abhorrent call you would ever get. But Wakefield fans in a close game against Wigan, where they feel like they've got a chance, are obviously going to feel
aggrieved.
Yeah, and I get that. I get why fans would feel that way. Then, about 10 minutes later, there was the Sean O'Loughlin one where and I think it was Kermond, Finn. No, I can't remember who was actually involved. No, Hubie actually was one of the ones involved, and one of the halfbacks had his hand sort of around the ball as well. And O'Loughlin had been stood up in the tackle, called held, and then went to push the Wakefield player off him, and in doing so lost the ball forwards.
Okay.
In my view, based on how the calls had gone in the game, that should have been given us a knock-on, because O'Loughlin had a duty of care to keep hold of the ball, even if he was trying to clear himself to play the ball quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, the onus is on him to retain control of the ball. But
it was given as a penalty. Right. So, I don't see that both of those two calls can be wrong, because they were both effectively about players trying to get a quick play of the ball, losing ball in trying to do that because of some interference or other. So they were either both penalties or both knock-ons, but they should have both been knock-ons, I think. Wakefield would have had the ball 40 metres out from Wigan's line with half an hour to go, and maybe scored, maybe not scored. Who'll have known? But 2 times after that, the same incident happened again, pretty much. Ben Flower was accused of knocking on, coming out of his own end about 30 metres from his own sticks, closer to the end of the game, still at 12-10 to Wigan, so more in favour of Wakefield than if they'd have been given the one before, I would argue. And Kyle Wood, who was brilliant in this game, by the way, tackles him, and I think it's sort of one-on-one, but gets his hands around the ball and forces the ball out. I think it should have been a knock-on by Kyle Wood if there wasn't too many in the ball in the tackle at the time, quite, in the
speed of things, yeah.
But it was giving us a knock-on against Ben Flower, right? When Kyle Wood has clearly got his hands around the ball. And then there was one on Sean O'Loughlin where Liam Finn had his hands sort of on the ball as 2 other players were taking O'Loughlin to ground. O'Loughlin bobbled the ball. I'm not even convinced he dropped the ball, but maybe he lost control. He probably lost control of it on the way down, but that was giving us a knock-on too. So that was consistent with the other incidents, if you know what I mean, because it went to the defending side, benefit of whatever, that the attacking player should have maintained control, and it's a knock-on. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think those 2 decisions could have gone the other way too. And if you put all of that into the big picture, then Hubie's one was a penalty, not a knock-on. O'Loughlin's was a penalty, not a knock-on. Flowers was a penalty, not a knock-on. And O'Loughlin's second one was a penalty, not a knock-on. Do you see what I mean?
I'm getting you.
The other decision that got the fans going was Mason Caton-Brown took a ball in the air that Morgan Escaray also took in the air, and it was simultaneous, the catch. And if I was having to guess at the time, I actually thought Caton-Brown probably took the ball. Everyone in the stands thought the penalty was for tackled in the air.
Right.
But when Cummings explained it on Sky when I watched it back, he said he thought the penalty was for Morgan Escaray catching the ball and getting tackled on the floor because both players were in contact with each other and the ball, and then Mason Caton-Brown taking it off him after he'd been tackled, because as soon as he hit the ball, as soon as he hit the floor with the ball in his hands with the player contacted him, he's tackled.
Yeah.
Right? And that would be a penalty, wouldn't it?
It would.
The other alternative is Mason Caton-Brown was the one who won the ball. Say he was. He went to ground. Morgan Escaray was in contact with him when he went to ground, and then he threw the ball off the ground after being tackled. Which, what does the rules say?
No,
it's a penalty.
Yeah.
So every which way you look at it, they were penalties. So I get why the Wakefield fans were angry about it, and he did keep a weird 10 for both sides in the game. He gave more penalties against Wigan for offside, I believe, than against Wakefield. Wakefield's penalties were mostly in the last 5 minutes. There was a few hands on the ball stopping us play the ball quickly where we didn't drop it, so they weren't knock-ons. But I get why they were angry, because it was a close game and they did play quite well, and I'd feel aggrieved just watching it at the stadium if I was them, on feeling like the 50-50s are going against us. I certainly get that. That was the same with the Hull FC game, weren't it? I felt the 50-50s went against us.
Yes.
And I didn't get the chance to see those decisions back and see if any 50-50s went for us as well. But I think Wigan were just about good enough. Escaray's try was really good.
I like Scott Grixey's try. I know it was, in the pitch.
Oh, it's a good play, yeah.
His little step inside, his little finish. He's having a good season for Wakefield, isn't he, Scott Griggs?
Really good play, and he gets himself into good positions. And they threw the ball around a little bit more probably than Wigan did consistently. And but it was the forwards from both sides very good.
There you go. Okay, so what do the stats tell us?
12 errors each wasn't great for either side. Beyond that, Wigan won on all the key stats. 3 tries to 2 with 7 breaks to 4, 229 more metres at 1 metre per carry better average gain, and 11 successful offloads to 8. Add to that a 1.5% better team tackle success and a 7 to 11 penalty count that they were on the more disciplined end of, and the numbers suggest Wigan were deserved winners.
Okay, so individually, who stood out?
Liam Marshall with a try, 6 tackle busts, 134 metres, 4 clean breaks. Anthony Gelling, despite his simbing and playing on one leg with one arm, 5 tackle busts, 143 metres, 5 successful offloads.
Do you think that's why I tried to take Mason Caton-Brown's leg?
I think that's why I tried to take the easy option of not really.
I've just been a prick.
Putting an hard tackle in, yeah.
I've just been a prick.
No, but I agree. I think it would have played a factor, and he needed the rest.
That golden bike won't pedal itself, will
Tom Davies, 158 metres. Frank Paul Nuwasala, I think, had his best game certainly this season for Wigan, 110 metres, and he was sharp in defence as well. Liam Farrell, 151 metres.
Okay, so for Wakey then,
Kyle Wood, 44 tackles. Mason Creighton Brown back in this one in the centres, 129 metres. Bright Eyes Arona, 100 metres. Ben Jones Bishop, 1 try, 99 metres. So let's credit him with 100. Just get him in the stats for it. 2 clean breaks.
There you go.
He had that chance, didn't he, where in the end it was ruled a forward pass, I think, but Miller threw the pass out wide and Marshall just about tipped it over the bar.
Oh, right, okay.
Whereas the other way around, when Marshall scored his try, Ben Jones Bishop couldn't quite tip it over the bar. So it was a fine margin game. That incident showed. Scott Griggs, 1 try and 1 try assist, like you say, impressive still.
There you go. Right, over at Headingley on Easter Monday, then it was all over after about 25 minutes. This one, 42 points to 22 in favour of the Rhinos. A slight Widnes fight back, but not enough, in front of 15,408.
Yeah, and it was Scott Mikalauskas' first game of the season in Super League. Cutthroat Jake said James Sega who?
There you go, short but sweet. Rich Wilkinson said another good win for Leeds to end a tough Easter. Playing some nice stuff and scoring points. Spirited fight from Widnes in the second half, but Leeds just shifted gears and put the game to bed at the halfway point of the season. As a Leeds fan, you have to be chuffed. Joint top, and what a difference from 12 months ago. Plenty of Rhinos haters kicking stones right now.
Yeah, Neil McEwen said, don't think our coach arrived till half-time. Got bummed in the first half. Game's over after that. 20 minutes. Betts got till magic to save his job.
What do you think the Betts out signs are going to start appearing, like the Wenger out signs have been appearing everywhere? Do you think we're going to start seeing them on social media? Perhaps not.
I don't think there's I think the feeling is more we need a change rather than Dennis Betts has embarrassed this club by sticking around so long. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
The problem, really, as we've said so many times, is they've had this really clever policy of retaining the core of the squad and keeping a group together. But what they haven't done is supplemented that with strike power.
Yeah.
I mean, they did with Corey Thompson, but then. That was it.
Yeah.
Maybe they've tried to a bit with like Jack Buchanan coming in, but he was a second-rate player from the NRL standards, and he looks good. 1 game in every 3, he looks okay. The rest, it's not like David Fafita who's pushing people out of the way and bouncing them off you, which is the kind of impact forward they maybe needed.
Yeah, I agree. Rich Wilkinson we've done, Neil McKeown we've done, Paul, Ludo, Lewis, looking forward to this one. Another week, another apology to my kids for putting them through the burden of being a Widnes fan. Teams don't even need to try very hard to score past us anymore. A starter set of 6 inside Widnes' 30, and it's a try. Once again, Craven and Gilmore showing that the problems don't just lie in missing a quality halfback, as they were both ace. Only plus side, is we're just 16 more wins away from getting next year's stronghold for free. There you go.
Yeah.
The season starts here, Ludo.
I mean, it's a different way of getting out of like these sort of sponsorship promises than what Bradford took.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, all things considered, Ludo, I'd take where you are every day of the week rather than what we had offered to us before we were liquidated.
But in this
Mark,
round,
we don't have. Okay, go on.
What?
Nothing.
We don't have what?
Nothing. I'll get there in a minute.
We do have stats.
Oh, do we?
They were just up later than the rundown was done. So before I popped round, I was able to put something together.
As long as I just say what I normally say at the stats point, this is going to run seamlessly, then, isn't it?
Yeah. No one will know.
Excellent. We've got away with it. Don't tell anyone.
This round's shockingly embarrassing piece of defence award goes to a Widnes side rather than Hull FC, but it was Tom Briscoe's try from dummy half.
Yeah.
Where he had 4 yards to run into and then was allowed to run round the back of the defensive line to make the kick dead easy too. It was farcical.
It is farcical, but that in
John
some
Moon also
respects
scored another greased up deaf guy kind of run.
Greased up deaf. I haven't thought about that in years.
You're gonna catch me wasting your time. See you all next year.
But that whole Tom Briscoe try thing, basically in one piece of play, sums up Widnes' season, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Sorry, I was just struck by your picture thinking, I wonder if that tram's one of the trams that they've got at Beamish.
It might be. That is a picture, and this is great for podcasting. That is a picture of the Royal Hotel in Bingley, and 5 generations of crook men have drunk there.
There we go.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at. That's what caught your eye.
Yeah, sorry, you were saying.
I don't recall now. Oh yeah, the point I made whilst you were looking at the picture, and I think we've already said it once, is that Tom Briscoe manoeuvre basically sums up Widnes's season, doesn't it? Really?
Do you know what also summed up with